Hey guys, so what does a lawyer and a preacher have in common? Stick around and we're going to find out. So good morning. I'm joined this morning by David Benbow, Daryl Davidson. I'm Luke Martin. We're the attorneys at Benbow, Davidson, and Martin, or at least three of them anyway. So we're here with Suits and Boots Legal Talk, and we're going to talk today about who we are, why we decided to do this, and what in the world does a preacher and a lawyer have in common. So you guys run with it. What do y'all think?
Well, I think we're sort of like a motley crew, to be honest, because, you come to the office, of course, wearing boots. I'm normally in a suit, and David sometimes is casual because he's sort of winding it down. But if you were to see us out on the street, you wouldn't think that we were partners, would you? I mean, and law partners. So that's I think the most unique thing about it is that we all look like a motley crew, but we come together.
So I went to Liberty University for my undergrad, which is a Christian law school. So everybody that comes to me, while I'm an undergrad says, well, what are you going to do after you graduate, Luke? And I said, well, I'm going to law school. And they said, law school? I thought you were going to be a preacher. You're going to a Christian school. Well, I said, preacher, lawyer, they both like to hear themselves talk. There's not much difference, right? So that's what we're doing here today. And that's what we're doing with Suits and Boots Legal Talk with Benbow, Davidson, and Martin. We want to talk to you guys, let you know who we are, let you know how we came together. And that's what we're here for today, is just to talk about this is us. This is what we do. And this is how this motley crew came to be.
Exactly.
So I guess it all started with you, David, back in 1972? Two. And that was in Graham, right?
Yeah, I practiced law in Graham for 3 years with Ross Wood and Dodge right after I graduated from law school. And I learned that Graham was not the center of the universe. and I'd always wanted to come back home to Statesville where I had grown up. And so I had an opportunity to come back and hung out my shingle.
Yeah. So you grew up, and I've heard you talk about you haven't gone very far in life because you grew up, a block from our office or something
just a couple of blocks from our office, and I grew up on Queens Court, right off of Bost Street, and walked to Davie Avenue School where the brand new high-rise jail now sits.
Yeah, that's awesome. So we've all stuck close to home. Daryl, you're from Iredell County too.
Exactly, from Statesville, and just like Mr. Benbow here, we wanted to come back home. I wanted to come back home and practice, and to a small town and make a difference. Yes.
Yeah. So I was raised in Hidnight, just up the road in the edge of Alexander County, but I went to school in Iredell County, and went to West Iredell High School. Graduated in 2003, and went to work with my dad actually for several years. I was in law school, talking to my faculty advisor, and I said, my family has been in that area for years. I think the house that I was raised in was built in 1890 by my great-great-grandfather. And his father lived across the creek from that house. And then my church that I went to was established by my great-great-great-grandfather. And my faculty advisor looked at me and said, if you're thinking about practicing law anywhere besides that place, you better think again. Good. And so I thought, why in the world would I not come home? Because if I'm not related to the person, I probably know them. So when you've been around, and our families have been around this long, it's hard not to get to know people and be related to them. And David, Millersville in Taylorsville or in Alexander County is named for your ancestors.
Yeah, my grandparents. Yeah.
So it's just it makes sense. It makes sense for us to be here. Well, it's a joke, that attorneys and preachers like to hear themselves talk, but really, one of the things that you think about when you think about a pastor or a preacher is somebody who's going to be there in the hard times.
Yeah. True.
Somebody who's there to help when things really aren't going the way you want them to go. And what else are we doing if it's not that?
Right.
What motivates you guys to come into the office every day?
You want to go first? Although you're winding down, but over the years. I'm
reminded of Willie Mays, who said that he loved baseball so much he would play for nothing. And he said that after he had retired. So I come into the office because I enjoy the people. I enjoy the people at our office. I enjoy the people that I work with. I enjoy my relationship with the other lawyers, the judges. But mainly I come into the office every day for the clients.
Yeah.
I've heard some of the saddest stories ever in my life in that law office. And so that's why I come in to listen and to help if I can. And sometimes the best thing you can do is just listen.
True.
Yeah.
True.
Yeah.
True. Well, I come in the office every day because I have a child in college. So
You won't. You don't love it so much you'll do it for free, do you?
Yeah.
Her institution won't let me let her go for free. So I have to know. I'm just kidding. But no, I come in the office because I love what I do. I love talking to people, helping people. And I think our motto, of course, is we're here to help. And I feel like I'm doing a service to the individuals that I'm, my clients. And nothing is better than when you do a case for a client and, you're just doing your job, but you get a thank you letter. Yeah. You ever get those cards and they say, thank you so very much. And then you learn all of the things that they were actually going through during the time that you were representing them. And those are the times that I feel really, really good, like I've really, truly made a difference. Especially, I've gotten cards from individuals that I've represented that ended up being incarcerated, but after they, were released, they said, that probably was the best thing that happened to me at that time because I was able to focus and understand. And so those are the times and those are the things that I like about practicing is when I feel like I'm doing something for somebody. I'm not just coming in, going through the motions. I'm actually helping individuals.
Yeah. Well, ultimately, that's what I've always done. So when I graduated from high school, I went to work for my dad doing heating and air and plumbing work and, just helping people. And there's not much better feeling than going to somebody's house on a 10-degree night and they don't have heat, and you turn that heat on. Right. Man, they are tickled. I mean, that just you're a superhero, True. Really.
Yeah.
Because if people are thinking about going through a 10-degree night without heat, they're worried.
True.
And you come in and turn the heat on.
True.
And we do the same thing. It's not physical heat, but we come in and we help where they look at the situation and just think, man, there's no way out of this.
Right.
Sometimes the best thing we can do for clients is to turn the heat down.
Yeah, and most of the time we have to turn the heat down.
Well, in my case, as a criminal defense attorney, get the heat off of them.
Exactly. Well, Daryl, so you practiced here from the very beginning, right?
Right. When I graduated law school and I became licensed to practice here in North Carolina, I started off with a small firm, Presley Maddox and James Mallory, and I will always be thankful to them for giving me the opportunity to come back home. I remember being home on a Christmas break, and I just walked into their office, and I said, my name is Daryl Davidson. I'm from here. I go to the University of Iowa. I need a job when I get out. And they had done some work for my mother, and I was very impressed with the job that they did. And so Mr. Maddox at the time, he said, well, I tell you what, you leave your resume and I'll be, and I'll see what we can do, for the summer. So this is going into my pretty much, I think my second year, my third year. And I remember spring break came when I was, in college, in law school, and I hadn't heard anything from anybody. And so I started interviewing, of course, in Minnesota, because out in the Midwest, those are the firms and, of course, the entities that were recruiting out of Iowa. Iowa was the Midwest. And so I remember getting an offer from the public defender's office in Duluth, Minnesota. And I said, it's looking pretty slim for me. I'm going to probably spend my summer in Duluth, Minnesota.
Speaking of needing heat.
Yes. And so I come back from class one day, and there's a message on my answer machine, and I click it, and it says, Daryl Davidson, this is Presley Maddox. He says, you're still wanting that job, we will, accommodate you for the summer. And so that started, of course, my relationship with James, with that firm at that point. That's when I began employment.
Now, for our younger listeners, can you explain what an answering machine is?
Because nobody really recognizes it. Exactly. I don't think I've seen one of those in so long.
What you're saying is you've been around a little while.
I've been around a little bit. I've been around since before YouTube and all this social media. But I worked there for that summer, and I loved it, and they actually hired me afterwards. And so when I was hired afterwards and I started my career, I was doing bankruptcy. I was also doing criminal law. And I developed my family law practice actually at, Maddox and Mallory. And so for the first 2 or 3 years as an associate, I was basically helping with the bankruptcy. I was helping with some of the civil actions. I was also doing criminal law, but I was also trying to get my family law practice off the ground also. And so I stayed there for it was like 5 years. And after I do believe the third year, that's when I became partner. And in 2 years working into it, I understood that, I sort of wanted to branch out because we were having a growing population in the Latino community, and I wanted to service that community also. My wife is from the Dominican Republic, so, I speak Spanish. It's not as good as I'd like for it to be, but, I speak Spanish, and so I wanted to not only help, just in our general community, but for the individuals that were coming in the Hispanic community. And so I actually branched off at that point and started my own firm, and myself and the paralegal that was there at the time is Bailey, who's our office manager now. And honestly, we've been together, Mrs. Bailey and I have been together longer than I've been married. And so we started off on our own in a small space, and it grew. And it grew to the point where I had a office here in Statesville, and I had an office in Taylorsville. And so when business really started picking up in Taylorsville, I cut the office. I shut down the office in Statesville, but I was still practicing in Alexander and Iredell County. And so I maintained that office in Taylorsville for 15 years, as a sole practitioner with, I had secretary and my office manager, and my clientele, with the Latino community, grew at that time.
Yeah.
And so that's, basically how I got started. And again, like I said, I'm thankful to James Mallory and Presley Maddox for giving me the opportunity, not only one, to get back home, but number two, to give me employment, which was hard to do at times coming out of law school.
It's similar. Mr. Benbow did that for me. So I was 2015, I guess it was 2014, I was in my third year of law school, and I didn't get started right out of high school. Kind of like you,
Right.
I went to work, and David didn't get started right out of high school either. He went to Korea and served over there. So I worked for my dad in heating and air and plumbing for several years, and then went back to college and finished my college up. So 2014, Thanksgiving, 2014, right. I was home, and David had stopped by the house. He was a family friend. We went to church together, and he stopped by the house and he said, "Luke, what are you doing when you get out of law school?" And I said, just joking, I said, "Why, are you hiring?" And he said, he said, "Well, if you're available." And I thought, okay. Well, he said, "I tell you what, let's talk at Christmas." And so when I came home from Christmas, I came and spent a day with him, and the rest has just been history. So I came to work at Benbow and Phillips. It was then.
Yes.
Richard Phillips worked with us back in 2015. And then in 2016, tragically, Mr. Phillips passed away. And he was the real estate attorney there. He did a lot of all the real estate work, really.
Okay.
And I took on that load and just found something that I never imagined I would enjoy.
Right.
Didn't take any classes really for it in law school or anything like that, but I started doing title searches. And what I realized was I would do a title search on a piece of property, and I would find out I know the person that used to own that.
Right.
Or I do a title search and I come across the guy that owned the property next door was L.S. Johnson, and that was my great-grandfather. Stuff like that. So I just find these connections, and it's so interesting to dive into the history because that's what real estate law and title searching really is.
I used to do a lot of title searches when I first went to work with Ross, Wood & Dodge. And Harold Dodge, who did most of our real estate work, what he didn't hand off to me, said it's like putting together a puzzle. And he really was a smart guy and would put these puzzles together and figure out who owned the property. Sometimes that's really, really difficult to do. Sometimes you have to file an action to quiet title to establish ownership. But I do remember that conversation with you, Luke, and I had known your mom and dad for a long time. And I knew that unfortunately Richard's health was not really doing well, and of course I'm an older guy, and we just needed some help, and here you are.
Well, it's been great getting to work there. I couldn't think of a better attorney to be mentored by than you, and it's just been it's working with you, Daryl. I mean, we met, so all this started kind of coming together. I don't know, 2019,
Somewhere
maybe
along
we
there.
started having
Yeah,
conversations
about
about
2019.
merging the two law firms.
Exactly.
And you and I would see each other in court every morning.
Yeah, and as a matter of fact, I would always get there early in the morning because I always say the early bird can catch the worm and his mama if he gets up early enough. And so one of the things I really admired about you was you had the work ethic to get in, get your work done, and I really admired that. Now, as far as David is concerned, when I first came, back home to practice, to me, he was the model attorney. And I'm not saying that just because we're on the show. I think I've told him that. If you looked up attorney, in the yellow page, well, do I have to explain yellow pages, what that is? If I looked up.
If you Google attorney.
If you Google the word attorney, I would always, and I think I've told David this, he would come up because to me, he was an example of what an attorney should be, especially in a small town. Yeah. And, honest, truthful about, the situation and worked hard for his clients. And so for me, I always looked up, to David. And of course, he's been practicing for quite a long time. And so even if I had cases, we've had a couple cases where you were on the other side, always pleasant to work with. And so I think you guys had approached and we had talked about, let's form a partnership because at the time I was in Taylorsville. And of course, I had ideas about maybe shifting my career to the judgeship. But fortunately, unfortunately, however you look at it, it did not work out. And I remember telling you guys, hey, if it doesn't work out, I'll be glad to, consider it. And after a couple talks, man, we brought it together. And it's worked out. It's worked out great. And, one of the things that I can say is that we've sort of like, we thought about it really, really intensely because, David's, he's wanting to retire. I'm sort of the middle person here, and, you are the youngest out of the group. So it's sort of like
Even
making
though
its
I have
way.
the most gray hair.
Yeah, you have the most gray hair. Yeah. But at the end of the day, when I sat down and I thought about it, it just made sense. I would be back home in Statesville practicing. And one of the things I just learned here is that all of us sort of wanted to come back home.
Yeah. It's home.
And so we've made the best of it. And I think that one of the biggest things that helped me make the decision is that, David Benbow has a very good name and reputation in the community.
Well, when you think about that, I don't think I've ever told you this, but there was a day I did an internship with the DA's office. Mm-hmm. And so I was in court one day, and I was walking back through court, and I saw David sitting on the back row. And this was before we had ever really started talking about me coming to work. I think this was between my first and second year. Mm-hmm. And I saw David sitting there, and this is funny now because I know you so well. But then I was too nervous to come up and say hey to you because it's like, that's David Benbow.
Well respected.
And
respected in the bar and across the state.
You see that a lot of times because I remember I would sit in a restaurant with my folks here in town, and you would see Mr. Pope or Mr. McMillan or Mr. Benbow, and people, there's Mr. Benbow, there's Mr. Pope, there's Mr. McMillan. These guys that you think of as these are the lawyers in town.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of times for me, looking back on that, I always thought being an attorney made you some kind of superhuman or something. And now that I am one, it's like, no, I'm just a regular guy.
Just a regular person.
We're just regular people.
We just have a title.
And that's one of the things I think we can do with this podcast, this video series that we're doing, is show people, hey, we're just regular folks who have emotions and feelings, and we're just here to help. We're not out of reach.
Exactly.
We're not people that you got to be scared to come up and talk to or nervous about talking to. Just come and see us. Let us help, because that's what we're here to do.
Yeah. And again, one of the things, even to this day, when clients come in the office, a lot of times I'll ask, well, how'd you hear about us? How'd you specifically hear about me? It's like, well, Mr. Benbow helped my dad, or Mr. Benbow helped my grandfather. I've so the name has really been a good thing, not only for our firm, but just, David alone. It's been a great thing. So at the end of the day, when, we decided that we were actually going to form it, it was probably one of the best things or best moves in my legal career, at the time. And we haven't looked back. We've done, really well with it. And I've enjoyed it. I can't say that, I'll be doing it for 50 years. So I take my hat off to David because he's done it for 50 years. Yeah. And, I'm a state bar counselor, of course, because of David. And when I go down to the state bar, I mean, he's made such an impression, and he's done good work, over the years that, people still ask, and people still remember. Oh, David Benbow's from that district, and so he's my partner. So it's been
the State Bar didn't remember David Benbow as from your district because I'd had some problems.
No, it wasn't no problems. Let's clear that up.
Served on the State Bar.
Let me clarify that. He served on the State Bar. He was not before the State Bar.
And there's some people,
some issues.
There's some people, and I won't name any names, who, if you say you're from Statesville, the State Bar, one of the lawyers would always ask me, how's so-and-so doing?
But, at the end of the day, it was a very good move for all of us. And like I said, if you were to see us out on the street, just even separately, nobody would ever believe that we were actually partners, because we have somewhat of different lifestyles and different backgrounds.
But how cool is that? I mean, and when we were thinking about names for this, we were trying to think of what really represents who we are. And, obviously Benbow, Davidson, and Martin kind of hits the nail on the head. But Suits and Boots came to mind because, you guys are always like the fancy guys and all dressed up. And
my mom dresses me.
Your mom?
Yeah, she lays up my clothes.
Maybe I should ask my mom. I'm from a rural area of the county, from Hidnight. There's nothing up there. So I live on a little farm up there. I wear my boots to work every day. And you guys always come dressed to the nines. And, so we are Suits and Boots. And it doesn't matter whether you're an older person, whether you're thinking, 10 years, 15 years from retirement, or whether you're maybe early in your career or younger, we can relate. And I think that's what makes this law firm really special, is we have such diversity in so many ways.
We also have 2 younger lawyers that are associates in our law firm that help age-wise. I know we're not diverse as far as gender, with having a female working in the law firm as an attorney.
But that's yet to come.
Yeah. But at least we're aware of that.
Yes.
I don't know. Miss Bailey is about as close to an attorney. If any of you have talked to Tanya, if she tells you something, if you need help or something like that, she's probably more helpful than any of us. And honestly, that's true for all of our ladies in the office.
They are.
Pretty much.
We have several certified paralegals that work with us, and they're all experienced, really knowledgeable paralegals, and they know enough to help our clients, and know enough to say, hey, you need to ask Mr. Martin about that, or Mr. Davidson.
And this is true, because I remember being in court at times, because Tanya would handle, when I was out on my own, she would handle, of course, my docket and making sure my clients were where they were supposed to be. And I remember being in court one day, and they asked a gentleman or a young lady, it was a young lady, said, well, who is your attorney? And the lady responded, she said, well, that gentleman up there, she was referring to me, works for my attorney. Mrs. Bailey, I think that's my attorney. That's my attorney.
but that person was right.
But that person was right. Yeah.
So people think it's, and just, this is, I guess, just a confession for everybody. People think it's so special to have my cell phone number. But honestly, if you call my cell phone, your chances of getting helped are much less than if you just call Tracy. Or Dana.
And same here with me, with Ms. Bailey, or any of the other staff members. That's correct.
Because we'll talk or we'll text or whatever, and 5 minutes later, I forgot.
Yeah.
And if you talk to Tracy, every 5 minutes, she's going to be saying, Luke, you got that done? Luke, you got that done? Luke, I won't forget. So, but the ladies that work for us have been, David, you've had how many employees in the office for 50 years? You can speak to that as much or better than anybody, how helpful our staff and a good staff
we
can
couldn't
be.
do it without them.
No.
That's just a fact. I don't know. I just can't even imagine trying to do my job without having a good or several or many good paralegals. They're invaluable.
They are. And one of the things that I learned, when I first started practicing with James Mallory and Presley Maddox, was that even at the clerk's office, those are the individuals that are the heartbeat of the courthouse. Those are the ones they make it go. And just like those clerks at the clerk's office, our paralegals are the ones that really keep us functioning. And without them, we wouldn't be able to function in a smooth manner. And so a lot of appreciation goes to the staff. And that's and I look at that again, like when I go to the clerk's office. They are the individuals that can help me, or they could actually, break me. And so I always tell potential when I was, hiring secretaries, and that, I look at it as a family. Nobody works for me. We all work together. Yeah. And when we're, either one of us are successful, then I want everybody else to feel some of that success too, So at the end of the day, they're just as important. And there are times, of course, just like with any other job, we all get stressed out. But at the end of the day, if we did not have them, it would be difficult to do our job.
Our paralegals have more combined experience than the three of us.
They sure do.
You're exactly right.
They sure do.
We've got a lot. We've got, 80?
Yes.
80 years, 85, I don't know,
Yeah.
combined experience.
Yeah.
They've got over 100, our paralegals. So
Yeah.
experience really counts.
Oh, it matters. Yeah.
And that's from the person or the individual that answers the phone all the way up to the person that's actually getting files together for the attorneys or typing complaints for the attorneys. Each and every one are important, from the part-time, full-time, whatever. All the staff is important.
Yep. Well, guys, any final thoughts before we close this one down?
Well, I would just like to say that I'm really proud of David because, again, when he started practicing, I imagine, a lot of things were different. And now I still can't wrap my head around the idea of being able to practice for 50 years. And so I take my hat off to him for that. And, built a name for himself, built a brand for himself. And, the fact that I got to come in, at least the last couple of years and practice with him has been really a very, very good experience. And I've learned a lot of things. I really, really have. And going to be missed, it really is. But I'll tell you, very interesting story. So hopefully in the upcoming Suits and Boots podcast, you'll get to talk about, your career in the Army, your baseball fetish, the Minnesota Twins and all of that, because I think there's a lot of interesting stories that I think you have that you could share.
Well, I'm just waiting for you guys to bring the rocking chair in and give it to me. The plan is to work until the end of December of 2024. And in the end of December of 2024, I'll be 80 years old, and I think it's time to quit. But I want to hit 80 with my boots on and my suit on.
There you go.
And we'll see how that goes. But that's the plan. And I tell you, I couldn't have picked two other lawyers to practice law with that I have more respect for and that I enjoy being around. I mean, we're around each other 5 days a week.
True.
For 8 hours a day, and it's just fun.
Yeah, it is.
And,
it is.
And we bounce things off of each other. If Luke's got a problem that he needs to talk to me about, he'll come see me. If I've got a real estate problem, I know right where to go. And Daryl and I, we're together all the time. Hey, what about this case? What about that?
Exactly. Well, but I think the dynamic though is that we all do different things. So I'm sort of coming in, taking you were doing the family law and criminal law, and so I sort of came in because that was my expertise in what I was doing. Real estate department, we're pretty much a full service. We do just about everything except for bankruptcy. And
Have you ever represented a guy for drunk driving on a lawnmower?
Not on a lawnmower.
Okay. If you get that case, come see me.
That would be a new one for me.
Yeah. Well, guys, thanks so much. So we just want you guys to know who we are, how this all came to be, and tune into this podcast. Like our Facebook page, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and keep up to date with. We're going to be doing these things periodically, and we want you to know who we are and what we've got going on. The next one you're going to see will be Daryl's focus on him, so it's going to be a deep dive into who is Daryl Davidson. We're going to do one on every attorney that's in the law firm, and then talk about what we do and how we do it. Maybe answer some questions that you may have along the way. But guys, keep up with us, and we'll see you again. Thanks.
Thank you so very much for joining us, and do me one more favor. You have a nice day. Take care.
I can't top that.